J.J. Carrell. Does anybody know who J.J. Carrell is?
I can't see.
Okay, basically he's one of the most sought-after immigration speakers. He's used his 24-year career as the United States Border Patrol as a journeyman agent to a deputy patrol agent in charge to expose the who, why, and how this treason is being perpetrated against our great nation. Carroll's been a guest on several nationally syndicated talk shows and television networks. He's become an expert on border issues and the criminal acts by Biden, his administration, and the DHS machine. He's unafraid to speak the truth, and he's unapologetically patriotic. So welcome, JJ. Give him a hand, and JJ will pick it up from here.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you tonight. Wow, how much has changed in less than a month. It's unbelievable. Less than a month ago, we were still averaging anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 people a day crossing our southern and northern border. It was a catastrophe, but it was done intentionally and strategically. Before I start, I think it's very important when you listen to someone speak, or when I watch someone give a speech or they're doing a podcast interview, I want to know who they are. I want to know what their experience is to make them be able to take 45 minutes of my time, and I want to know their perspective. What created that perspective? So I joined the Border Patrol in 1997, and I did 24 years in the United States Border Patrol. My last year in the Border Patrol was Joe Biden's first year in office, so I witnessed the treason firsthand. I did not move up the ranks of the Border Patrol by doing administrative stuff. I ran task forces, big and small. I made my bones being down on the southern border. If you look at the map of the United States and you go to the southwesternmost corner of the United States of America, from that point go east about 11 miles. That's the area I covered every day of my career for the first decade. It was the most violent time in recent Border Patrol history, because like President Trump came down that escalator in 2015, said he's going to run for president. He's going to stop all the rapists and murderers from crossing the border, and everyone lost their mind. I remember sitting there with my wife and saying, I don't understand why everybody's upset. That's all I arrest are rapists, murderers, pedophiles, and drug dealers. That's it. Maybe I throw a maid in there or a landscaper every now and then. But the majority of the people I arrest was violent, illegal alien criminals. I worked the entire border of, we call it corridor, San Diego, California corridor, and the entire Arizona corridor throughout my career. When I got done working the border down in Tijuana, I took a lateral transfer up to San Clemente, which is in Orange County, California, southern part. And then I took another promotion and ended my career in upper leadership in the United States Border Patrol as a deputy patrol agent in charge. And why that means, in layman's terms, there's about 2,500 agents in San Diego sector, and I was within the top 25. So I have a 20,000-foot view, if you will, of what is transpiring on our border, what happened when Joe Biden became president in those 4 years that he was in, and gave us the catastrophe that we're living through today. I left the Border Patrol, and I was so disgusted of how I had to leave because I couldn't continue to do the unconstitutional orders that were being directed down to us. I watched in his first day, Joe Biden's first day, release 94 executive orders, just like Donald Trump is releasing executive orders one after another. Biden did the same thing. But 94 executive orders, his very first 94 executive orders were all obliterating the border. We handed him the most secure border in the history of the United States of America. And in one day, he systematically tore it down. And we went from averaging around 500 to 600 arrests a day, which is nothing, to over 5,000 the first day. There were days in December of 2023 that we were arresting over 20,000 people a day. That's just what we know about. Now I'm not talking about the people that absconded. I left the United States Border Patrol and retired in a very decorated career. I took a year off and I would not talk about this subject. I wouldn't watch anything on TV. I just refused because I wanted to get away from it. Moved my family out of the state of California. But then someone found me and pulled me back in to this fray and began to do interviews. And then my wife said, If you want to get involved, you want to get back in the game and stop moping around, then you have to write a book. And you're going to have to get in the game and become legitimate. So I wrote a book called Invaded, became a bestseller multiple times on Amazon. And then I did something last summer that I've always wanted to do, and that was to create a documentary. And out of that came 2 documentaries, one on child sex trafficking, which we'll talk about later, and the other one, which is tied hand in glove, is the open border, called Invaded. I just wrote my second book called Treason. It gets released tonight at 12:01 midnight, which I'm very excited about. And that covers the last 4 years and talks in detail about what Joe Biden did to our country. Now, I say all that to begin what I'm going to speak to you today about. With complete certainty, without hesitation, after all that time in the United States Border Patrol, writing 2 best-selling books and having 2 critically acclaimed documentaries, I state with complete certainty and without hesitation, the United States federal government is evil, and they are corrupt, and they are the enemy of the people. I don't say that with any glee or joy. I'm just telling you straight. I'm a very black and white guy, and I believe in speaking boldly and speaking the truth. Is Donald Trump correcting a lot of these problems? Absolutely. Is he putting the right people in place? Absolutely. His picks are outstanding. However, as we are finding out now, as we are going with Doge and finding out that our federal government has stolen, not billions, they have stolen trillions of dollars from her citizens and enriched themselves. They've gorged themselves to the point that they're obese with power and money. There are still tens of thousands of anti-American, American-hating employees within the administrative state. That is a fact, and everyone knows it. But before we can go and speak about what we're going to do today, in present time, in current time, and what we need to do in the future to eradicate this problem, we have to go back and we have to understand how we got here and what is here. Like, what is the current state of America when it comes to illegal immigration? So let's go back to January 2021. When Joe Biden came and then did sign 94 executive orders obliterating the border, signed 296 executive orders in total on immigration his first year. First year he signed 296 executive orders, laying the foundation of what we witnessed for 4 years. So what happened in 4 years? Well, he allowed, these are all DHS numbers off of their website, the same website that I had access to, the same data points that I witnessed throughout my career, and I never believed them. And I certainly don't believe the numbers now, and I have their FOIA requests that show that I'm absolutely correct by saying the government continually lies, but let's just go off of what they say is true and correct. They state, CBP and the Border Patrol state that they arrested in 4 years approximately 12 million people. Their release rate, meaning the people they let walk out the door, was 95 to 97%. So basically every single illegal alien that they arrested, they deported. They released onto the street. In my career as a frontline journeyman agent, supervisor task force, mid-management, and then a senior leader, I arrested directly and indirectly easily 100,000 people. Do you know how many people I released onto the streets of America out of those 100,000? 0. Why? Because the Immigration Nationality Act, called the INA, is the Bible of immigration, and we were forbidden. It's against the law to release illegal aliens into the street. But under Mayorkas, the Secretary of DHS, he allowed all of the bastardization of every policy in the Immigration Nationality Act and abused the laws and created a chaotic system on the border. When you look at those 12 million, let's see who's inside of that 12 million number. Over 1 million Venezuelans, over 500,000 Haitians, over 200,000 Russians, over 200,000 Chinese nationals. To give you some context on Chinese nationals, in Donald Trump's last year, the United States Border Patrol arrested 1,970. In 4 years, Joe Biden averaged over 50,000 Chinese nationals. In my documentaries, I interviewed multiple people with alphabets behind their name CIA, special forces, on and on and on. And they told me that I could only speak them off the record. And they told me, to a man, there's at least 100,000 PLA soldiers inside of that 200,000 number. Over 200,000 special interest aliens were arrested and then released. What is a special interest alien? In layman's terms, we call them terrorists. Terrorists. And everyone in the business knows that our government released all of those individuals into America. And all of my data, all of my experience, and all of my sources tell me that that's a drop in the bucket, that you can bring that up to at least 5 times to 1 million are in our country. Terrorist. And I can go ad nauseum, one case after another, after another, after another, of our government fraudulently releasing large groups of terrorists into our nation and then having to go hunt them down. But I'm telling you, that's a drop in the bucket. What else was inside that 12 million? Well, 550,000 unaccompanied alien children called UACs, ages ranging from infants, literally newborn babies to 17 years old. They were brought into America and then they were transported back to the cartels to be child trafficked, labor trafficked, and sex trafficked. They are all gone. As Donald Trump has said repeatedly, and I will quote, a lot of them are already dead. Joe Biden, to give you some context, Trump's last year in office, he had about 15 to 20,000 unaccompanied alien children. That's still a large number, but that was still being dealt with by Obama's horrific policies of no child being separated from their family. But these were unaccompanied alien children. There were strict guidelines, DNA testing, follow-up visits, home visits to see where the sponsors are. When Joe Biden became office, the first year he arrested 120,000. Second year, 130. Fourth year, 140. And then we went to 150,000. He removed all the DNA testing. There were no background checks. There were no site visits, and there were no after care checkups. Nothing. People that I interviewed in my documentary became whistleblowers inside the DHS, inside HHS, inside the actual facilities that trafficked the children. I spoke to one man that was an Army analyst for USCIS, got fired for exposing the fact that transnational organizations that had no connection to each other had discovered loopholes within a sponsor program. So international cartels were smuggling children into the United States. The federal government was then turning them over to the NGOs, and the NGOs in turn turned them right back over to the cartels. And the sex trafficking continued to this day. And we'll talk about this later. And it's uncomfortable and it's grotesque because it is evil. Out of those 12 million, 60 to 70% of them were single adult military age men. When's the last time you saw refugees leave their women and their children back in the countries they're escaping from? This was a complete lie. All of it was a complete lie. The federal government admitted to losing 3 million that absconded, undetected, because 80% of the southern border was completely unmanned. 80%. 1,600 miles out of 2,000 miles were left completely alone. Not a single Border Patrol agent patrolled there. In 100 years of the United States Border Patrol history, we never did that. Never. Not one day. Through FOIA request, the federal government admitted to using commercial airlines to fly hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens from across the globe into America, did not count them in their encounter or arrest data, just release them straight into America, off the books. They had to admit that last April. And then the FOIA request was updated, and then they had to admit several months later that in fact they didn't do anything to stop it. In fact, they kept doing it, increased it. There are major people that have great insight and ability to look at data, believe the number of illegal aliens that our federal government chartered flights and flew illegal aliens out of their foreign countries into America in the dark of night surpassed millions. Millions. Your federal government has admitted to bringing in over 17 million people into America in 4 years. I'm telling you that number is incorrect. The real number is 30 million. There are 15 to 18 million illegal aliens that crossed the border undetected and absconded. If you don't want to believe me and you want to believe the government, that's fine. So we're going to split hairs between 17 million and 30 million. Are you okay with 4.25 million illegal aliens entering your country every single year? Let me put this into context, because we're so used to these huge numbers, billions, trillions, millions. Let me explain to you just on what was arrested and released, not the getaways. We just watched the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Holds about 75,000. 70, 75. Let's just say 70 as a round number. Easy to add and to divide. The average Joe Biden allowed into the country was about 10,000 a day. And I think that is extremely conservative. But let's just go with it. On day one of Joe Biden's presidency, I opened the southern doors to the Superdome. And I let 10,000 people in. I did that for a whole week. The whole stadium was packed to capacity on the seventh day. 60 to 70% of those people were single adult military-age men. There were thousands of terrorists, tens of thousands of criminal aliens. There were at least 20,000 women and children. And out of those 20,000, 60 to 80% of them had already been raped or sexually assaulted, making their trip to the border. On midnight of the seventh day, I open the northern gates and I allow all 70,000 of them to flood into New Orleans and into America. At the same time, I do not close the southern gates because I'm still taking in 10,000 a day. And in 7 days, it fills up again. And on the seventh day, I release them into America. And I do this every single week. 70,000 every week for 4 years. If you add the getaways, then you add another stadium like the Big House that holds 100,000 in Michigan. And I do the same thing. To understand how many children have been trafficked into the United States of America, you go to the Michigan Stadium, the Big House. It holds 100,000+. 5.5 of those stadiums filled with babies to 17 years old have been trafficked into the United States of America. A lot of them are already dead. Many of them pray daily that they die. Why do we have child sex trafficking? Why is that such a big deal? Well, let me explain to you from a guy that's did this for 24 years. Prior to Joe Biden coming into office, the drug cartels would never, ever touch human trafficking. It's dirty. It's beneath them because they can move packages. Just like FedEx, I just move a package. However, when the cartels, narcotic cartels, saw that the federal government removed all risk, all transportation cost, all risk of losing their package, they would push a little child across the border and wait for the Border Patrol to arrest them. Let's go all the way back so you have an understanding of how grotesque what I'm talking about. The majority of these children are coming from Central America, but they come from all 180 nations. Central Americans, they either sell their children or rent them or they're kidnapped. I know it's hard for Americans to hear this because it's beyond anything that we could ever envision doing, but this is the truth. The cartels take the children. They will rape and prostitute the child all the way till they get to the border. And then when they get to the border and they're done raping the child and everything they got to do to it, babies included. They will put a lanyard around their neck where they will staple a note card to their chest. And on the lanyard and the note card, it states the person's name, their address, and the phone number for where they want the federal government to deliver this child to. There is no welfare check for this child. He will be put in Border Patrol custody, turned over immediately to HHS or to one of the religious, non-governmental organizations that are corrupt all the way to the core. Let's just focus on Catholic Charities. I'm Catholic. I'm disgusted by Catholic Charities. They are the #1 child sex trafficker and human trafficker in the United States of America that works for the federal government. They've received over $5.2 billion since 2009, $3 billion, minimum $3 billion in the last 4 years. $3 billion. But you can count every other religious NGO, Jewish Family Services, Lutheran Family Services, Seventh-day Adventists, the Baptists, you can name it. You name the religion, they're involved, and they're taking money. Every last one, I'm under the cloak of God. They'll pay a deep price for that. So the NGO, Catholic Charity, will then take that child. They will put that child in custody of a individual called a escort. They name themselves escorts. There's thousands of them. Do these escorts have PhDs? Do they work for CPS? Do they have some kind of child development? No. They either have a high school diploma, a GED, or nothing. The NGOs are on the border, so where do they go to get their manpower? They go to day labor sites and employment sites. They hire individuals with no background check and employ them. How much do they make? The escort that I interviewed, and he says this is typical, under Joe Biden, he was making $6,000 to $7,000 a week. A week. How much were the NGOs making? Double, triple per person? And they have thousands of them working for them? So my friend Carlos Ariano, who was the escort, flew these children all over America. All over America. Every city, every state, every small town, he brought them. And he would turn them over to the cartel. There were times girls were crying, saying, this is not my uncle, I'm not supposed to be here, and they just pushed him in the door. The people that would come to take the child, the rule was you were never to come back with the child back to the NGOs, to the child detention facilities. They would turn over children, and the rule was the individual did not have to be the sponsor that was going to pick up the child. All they needed was a proof of ID, a copy of that ID of the sponsor. And here's the kicker. As long as the ID was not expired over 2 years, they would count that as legitimate ID. And the identification did not have to be a card with a picture. It could be a library card. It could be a birth certificate from a foreign nation. It could be anything you want. Just get the kids out. How bad was this? The Inspector General over the DHS in August of 2024 admitted at the time that they had approximately 450,000 children in custody, and they can't find over 320,000 of them. They're gone. I tell you that they're all missing because out of the 130,000 that were claimed welfare checks, let me explain what a welfare check, because this is very important. To claim somebody is safe, this is what it looks like. A third party hired by the federal government that has never seen the child, has no idea who the sponsor is, makes a phone call. The sponsor picks up. They say, is this the sponsor? Yes, it is. Is little Juan from Guatemala there? Yes, he is. Okay, goodbye. Juan is safe. Juan's not safe. They have no idea. The drug cartels, the narco smugglers now dominate the human trafficking. Why? Because the federal government has taken over all the risk and given the narco smugglers free rein to transport children into America. And when you understand that a child can be sold for the cost of cocaine and heroin, but when I sell a package of cocaine or heroin and I snort it, I shoot it into my veins, I do whatever I do to get high, that product is gone. I can't repackage it, I can't resell it. But little Juan that's 5 years old, I can sell Juan up to 20 times a day. I can sell Juan and allow him to be raped until he is raped to death. That is why the cartels are in the human smuggling business now. They've muscled out the human smugglers. The drug cartels run it all. A 13-year-old girl right now is receiving a sexual train in a hotel somewhere. There are little girls that are 3 years old being brutally raped as we speak. I testified in front of Congress in November, which was a joke because our government does not care. And my testimony was, as I'm speaking to you today, you congressmen and congresswomen, right now thousands of children are being raped. It is a probability, certainty, 100% certainty that this is happening. Do you know what our federal government said? Looks like we're out of time. It looks like we're out of time. And then the committee was over. A committee on child sex trafficking, and nothing was done. Nothing's ever done. We, the United States of America, has imported 550,000 children. They can't find any of them. In all of my sources, all of my experience, and everyone that knows that's in this business tells me that they're either dead, they've had their organs harvested, or they are living a life of absolute horror as they are performing sex acts for Americans. Do you know who the #1 consumer of child pornography is in the world? America. Do you know who the top nation or one of the top nations that physically pays money to rape children is? America. The #1 producer and exporter of pornography in the world is not even America. It's one city, Los Angeles. The #1 consumer of hard narcotics in the world is America. I'm going to say something that's going to be uncomfortable to hear, but I assume by looking at the crowd, many of you are wearing or have worn Make America Great Again hats. Listen to the statement, Make America Great Again. And I am the biggest MAGA supporter. I am the biggest Trump supporter. And I'm telling you that that hat is symbolic. And you must understand what that hat is saying. In order to be great again, that means that we're not great now. And that's the truth. We're not. We're not the shiny city on the hill. Can we become the shiny city on the hill again? Yes, we can. But Americans need to look into the mirror and understand the drug cartels, the human smuggling cartels, they're not the problem. Do I want to eradicate them and remove them from the face of the earth? Absolutely. I did this for 24 years. They're demons. They're not bad people. They're demons. And I would have no problem having the authority to go and eradicate them from the earth. However, they supply what we demand. We demand hard narcotics. We demand to have sex, which means raping children. We want cheap labor. We want slaves in America. We must do a deep dive, morally, socially, spiritually, to understand that the United States of America has wrought this moral cesspool that we wallow in. We created it. No one else did. We did. Child sex trafficking is a scourge on the soul of America. I believe strongly that Donald Trump was touched by God. I believe that he touched God. I had his angels move his head so we didn't see his head explode on national TV, and saved him because he heard our prayers. Just like in the Bible, where God heard the pleas and the cries to please allow us time to repent. The God that I believe in, the God that's in the Bible, not the feminized Jesus, not the hippie freak Jesus, not God that doesn't believe in the Ten Commandments, not a God that says that these commandments are they're just suggestions. No, I believe in the God that said, I am jealous, I am judgmental, and I hate to be mocked. And I've read, and I'm not a theologian, but I'm not an idiot either. And I have watched and read the words of God where he has destroyed nations off the face of the earth. Just removed them as if they never existed. In my mind, there's a God, the Almighty God, sitting up there, and he said, I've heard your prayers, America. I've heard them loud and clear. And I've given you Donald Trump, and I've given you some time to correct your horrific behavior. And in my mind, because I'm very black and white, I'm very linear, I see God standing up there with a stopwatch. And he's looking at his stopwatch. And he's looking down at us. And he's saying, time is ticking away. And you're not moving fast enough. How deep is this child sex trafficking? In my documentary, I interviewed all these people. And they all told me, separate from each other. I interviewed people that didn't know that I interviewed them. They had no idea where I'd been. They had no idea who else I've interviewed. And you know what they all told me? You need to understand that there are congressmen, senators, and presidents with an S that are pedophiles. Nothing will ever get done because the people that are up in Washington that are not pedophiles know who the pedophiles are. They remain silent, therefore they are complicit, and they could be coerced and blackmailed. Ask yourself how people go to Washington, D.C., absolutely running on a platform of MAGA first, and then when they get up there, they vote for everything they said they wouldn't vote for. How is that? Who got to them? How deep is this? My business partner, Ryan Matta, has gone on and filmed 2 other documentaries, and he followed the trail of tears, if you will, all the way back to Guatemala. And he found that almost 50% of all the children trafficked into America were Guatemalan children. It was statistically improbable. How many is a half? Almost 200,000 children kidnapped, sold, or rented in Guatemala. The Guatemalan Attorney General in April last year, raided 6 NGOs. One of the NGOs in Guatemala, called Save the Children, is the biggest of the 6. They raided them. Do you know who was the chairman of the board of Save the Children? Her name is Jill Biden. What happened 5 days after the Attorney General raided Save the Children? Secretary of State Anthony Blinken did an impromptu visit to Guatemala. And what did he ask the president of Guatemala to do? He asked for their Attorney General to be arrested for corruption. Where have we heard that scenario play out before? That would be in Ukraine with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden as VP. They don't even hide it anymore, people. They just do it right in front of your face, and you're going to have to deal with it. This is a known fact, an open source fact. Right now, America has 50 million illegal aliens. 1 in 6 to 1 in 7 residents in the United States of America is an illegal alien. How do I come up with that number? Well, in 2019, MIT and Yale, who we would never consider to be a conservative bastion, think tanks, but Yale and MIT did a study. They took data from demographics and jammed it into an algorithm and ran that algorithm 1 million times, and they found that the height of illegal aliens in America in 2019 was 29 million. They settled on the mean being 22 million, and everyone in my business and every politician agreed 22 million. And they all agreed rapidly because they knew that America could not digest 29, 30, 35 million. So they figured we could stomach 22 million. So 22 million illegal aliens were in America. And I'm telling you, at least 30 million crossed the border in 4 years. If you don't want to believe me, that's fine. Then let's take the 17 million number that the federal government that has lied to you since birth and has propagandized you in every way. But let's trust them. 17 million plus 22, we're at 39 million. Are you okay sitting there today in Florida knowing that 39 million illegal aliens are in America? Do you know I spoke to a Congressman King from Iowa? A great guy. He's no longer a congressman, but I remember this man many times. He was a staunch anti-illegal immigrant congressman. And he went through, I'll never forget this because I read it and I talked to him last week about this. I remember him going on the House floor and saying, I have looked at all of the arrest data, the murder rates data, everything, and I have concluded that, and this was in the early 2000s, that at least 25 US citizens are murdered or killed by illegal aliens every single day. Jim Jordan, who I'm not a fan of, has come out recently and said that number is now over 40 Americans a day are killed by illegal aliens. Now, why? Why was this done? Why did Joe Biden, Mayorkas, Kamala Harris, and the cabal of the Democrat Party, why did they do this? That's a big, important question, the 3-letter word, why? Because they wanted to fundamentally transform the United States of America. And they made a decision, just like Donald Trump and his team made decisions prior to becoming in office. Donald Trump did not have 200 executive orders created on day one. No, they were created months before. But all of Donald Trump's executive orders have benefited the United States of America. All of Joe Biden's executive orders hurt America. It's indisputable. You cannot argue. They hurt America. Every single one of them hurt America. So that means they made a strategic, an intentional, and a purposeful decision to destroy the United States of America by weaponizing illegal immigration to the tune of 30 million. And how were they going to fundamentally transform the United States of America? It was a demographic shift from citizens to non-citizens. And in my book, Treason, I laid out how they were going to do it. You are now looking at birth rates that are 3, 4, 5 times the women in America. Women in America are not even reproducing at the replacement rate. And you are bringing in third world people in the tens of millions that have a birth rate 5 times that of America. This is a bad math problem with bad negative variables attached to it. If Donald Trump, through Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, if he does not eradicate these 50 million illegal aliens from our country, everything we have done is for naught. Because the lie of birthright citizenship, which is a complete fallacy, will continue, and you are looking within a generation or two to you America will be in the minority. And I'm going to quote Vice President Joe Biden when he was sitting with, to his left was Secretary Mayorkas, grinning ear to ear, as Joe Biden said, in the years to come, we will have unrelenting waves of immigration, so much so that the Anglo-Saxon man, white man, will become a minority in his own country, and quote, that is a good thing. No, it's not a good thing. It's not. I don't want my demographics artificially changed. If Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, white Americans begin to reproduce at a higher rate than the other races, who cares? We're Americans. We don't see color. That is a lie. We don't. I don't. But when you artificially inflate demographics, so much so, and the black, I hate using racial breakdowns, but the left forces us. Black Americans do not even understand that they are no longer the number one minority in America. They were surpassed years ago by the Hispanics. Why is that important? Because with that title of being the largest demographic outside the majority, you have leverage. They've lost it all. And when you begin to look at the totality of what has happened in 4 years, there are 195 nations on planet Earth. The United States Border Patrol, in their arrest data, have over 180 different nationalities. This is not a racial demographic shift, a ethnic, a religious. This is a full-on bringing in non-citizens to overtake the citizens. What is easier? Who is easier to control? Someone like me? Someone like you that reads and writes English, knows our Constitution, know our Bill of Rights, know what the First and Second Amendment is. We understand search and seizure laws. We understand what a republic is. Or is it easier to control third world peasants that are illiterate in their own language? Let me be very clear. Not illiterate in English. They can't read or write English. They cannot read or write in their own language. And they are 100% dependent on the United States of American government. So much so that this is what Joe Biden admitted to. In 4 years, the cost of illegal immigration surpassed $1 trillion. $1 trillion of your money went to illegal aliens as Maui, Palos Verdes, and North Carolina citizens suffer still to this day, living in shanty tents in North Carolina in the mountains in February. Where are we at today? We are with a president that is powerful. He has named Kristi Noem the Secretary of DHS, and she is intelligent, she's gritty, and she's going full go. He nominated Tom Homan, who I believe is the greatest, and I know Mr. Homan, the greatest person you could find as a border czar. He also has tapped the new Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection. I know him very well. His name is Rodney Scott. Those three individuals will eradicate the 50 million people in our country. They have shut the border down on day one. Day one, not day 1,000. Day one, Donald Trump put the military and the Border Patrol back on the border and ceased 97% of the crossings. 97%. They're averaging about 300 arrests a day. There are 5,500 miles on the northern border. There are almost 2,000 miles on the southern border and the east and west coast. 300 people cross all those borders every day now. That is a trickle. And I am being told by all of my former colleagues, people I trust, that no one, absolutely no one is released. Every single person arrested is deported, period. And that brings us back to 4 years ago. Why would Joe Biden, Mayorkas, Kamala Harris, and the cabal keep the borders open and allowed in 17 million people by their numbers when all it took was one man to secure the border in 1 day? Because the people that were running our government, the people that are still embedded in our government, wanted to destroy the United States of America. And they came damn close. What is going to happen in the future? I don't believe we have a choice. And sometimes that's a good thing in life, isn't it? When you are kind of boxed in and you only have one way out. And that's what we're finding as Americans now. We have one way out. You can decide to stay in the box and die, or you can come out of that box fighting and take America back. I believe America is worth that fight. As I tell my young son, because he asked me, Dad, are you okay with speaking this the way you do? He's 13. He understands. And I had a discussion with him, and I said, listen, Joseph, you can decide every time something happens in your life, you have a decision to make. And one of the decisions that you can make is you can be a coward. But you will forever be a prisoner in your mind. And you will always see yourself as a coward, and you will never, ever do anything to undo that belief that you're a coward. And I would rather die than be trapped in my brain knowing I'm a coward. So the only thing we can do, son, and the only thing America can do is fight her way out of it. We have to eradicate the 50 million illegal aliens from our country. And you know who that helps? That helps all the legal immigrants that took their time, their money, their talent, their treasure to get here. Now they can have a shot at the American dream. What an evil thing to do to people than to allow them to come into America after long years and a lot of money and grief. And then when they get here, we snatch the American dream from them because we bring in tens of millions of illegal aliens that will work for nothing, so they can never obtain the dream. Treason has been brought to the body of America. Donald Trump has been put into a corner as well, into a box, and he has only one way out, and that is arresting the people that have done this to the United States of America. There's a direct correlation to U.S. aid and the billions and billions of dollars spent on foreign international NGOs. Our government used U.S. aid to fund international NGOs that helped traffic over 30 million people to our borders. DHS laundered the money through FEMA in tens of billions of dollars to domestic NGOs that then took over for the international NGOs and transported those illegal aliens into every state of our union. This illegal immigration invasion was the tool, was the weapon used to commit treason against America. And we are now finding that out through Doge. We're seeing all the money, billions, trillions, given to foreign countries in order to invade America. The United States of American government paid the hitman to come into your house, bought the weapon, purchased the magazine and purchased the ammo, and then helped the hitman pull the trigger to kill America. There is no other way around it. I know this isn't a pleasant topic to discuss. Treason is hard to digest because it's hard for us to believe that America could ever fall to this level. But let me be as crystal clear as I can be. If Donald Trump had another election stolen from him, there was no turning back. We would have seen 50 million people come into America in 4 years. We will have seen the destruction of America as we know it now. Now that God has saved us, there is only one question that has to be answered. And we all have this personal question that is right in front of our face. And that is, what are you going to do? And it's a choice. It's a simple choice. You're going to remain silent. But if you remain silent, you'll be complicit in this sin against America, and you will be devoured. Or you can fight. And what does that look like in real time? Do you have to go give speeches like me, write books? No, you don't. I know some of you in that audience are incredible bakers. You can make incredible food. Why not have potlucks where you discuss all the topics, everything that's going on? Why can't there be somebody in that crowd today that can run for city council, school board, mayor, chief of police, sheriff, and then the rest of you get behind them and take care of the fundraising, the treasury, the signing, the documents, the door knocking. You must take over your local governments. And don't tell me it can't be done, because you know who did it? Do you know who dominated all the school boards, all the city council, and changed blue, red cities and towns? Do you know who did that? The left did it. The left took the playbook of our founding fathers and used it against us. How do you think small towns across America have transgender studies in their high school? Kids acting like pets. Child mutilation. LGBTQ flags flying in the houses of worship. How did that happen? It happened because we, the American, patriotic Christian Americans, allowed it to happen. More specifically, the American man laid down like a coward and defied God, who entrusted us to protect and provide for our women and children, and allowed mental patients to take over our government, to shut us up, to make us believe or say out loud that men can have babies, that you can be any sex you want. This is a time to be bold. It is a time to speak the truth without feeling any need to apologize. But you must act, because if we do not act and we do not back our president, because one man cannot do the job, it is our job to be with him and to make America great again. We can do it, but we are in a war. We are in a war for the soul of America, and everybody must get in the game. I appreciate you allowing me to speak to you, and especially about things that are very difficult to hear. But thank you very much. Yes, I can.
Okay. JJ, I'm James. Nice talking to you on the phone.
Yes, sir.
I can speak for everybody here. I think that this went very well. So fortunately, our experiment worked. I have a question to start with, and I guess everybody here, if you have a question, come on over here, and we'll give you the microphone so you'll be able to ask the question directly to JJ, okay? The question I have is, it comes with a story at the beginning, is Rush Limbaugh said something that really hit me a couple of years before he died. And he said something about the reason that they'll never arrest Hillary Clinton, the reason they'll never arrest Joe Biden, the reason none of this will ever happen is because the FBI has all the information on everybody and they really control everybody. And then when I watched Jeffrey Epstein and all these things happen, it just everything gets buried. The January 6th, everything gets buried and everything gets buried. Mm-hmm. How much do you think that the fact that possibly the CIA, the FBI, having all this information and controlling everybody is the real source of a lot of the control?
Well, I think it's already been proven that that's what's happened. U.S. aid has been known as a direct arm of the CIA. So I interviewed a woman 2 days ago. Credible. She's a retired colonel from the Air Force, and she is an expert on Operation Gladio. And a long way about that is after World War II, the Germans, through the United Nations, put people in all of the nations and in order to create chaos, and if there's uprisings, to take care of it. We have Operation Paperclip, where we brought all the Nazi scientists to America. That started MK Ultra and sex magic, which was run by the CIA. That was proven in the Church Commissions in 1975, where the CIA said, yes, we have sexually mutilated and destroyed thousands of children and men and women, and they said, well, we just won't do it again. Okay, everybody go home. That actually happened. Our government has a history of this. Why is Hillary Clinton not in jail? Why is the FBI able to do what they do? Because we are systematically corrupt as a nation. Everyone knows it. It may be very hard for you to hear. You might be uncomfortable. It doesn't matter anymore what your comfortable feelings are. The matter of fact is our government has betrayed us. We are now we're over $4.7 trillion in Doge findings, just in one department, the Treasury. How do you lose $4.7 trillion? You don't. You pay people off. They have stolen from us for decades. They have lied to us for decades. We are no longer the republic our founding fathers put into place. We're going to have to fight tooth and nail to get it back.
Hi there.
Hello.
One question about the NGOs, especially Catholic charities. I'm not Catholic, I'm a born-again Christian, but I've heard about Catholic charities and Save the Children for years.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if Pope Francis knew about what Catholic Charities has been doing over these all these years, because he has gone left full force over the last 5 years, and I've been following this Pope. He was pretty good at the beginning, but he's gone totally left. He's for illegal immigration full force, and Catholic Charities is involved in this thing. Good grief! They need to get their life. You get down on their knees, get their life right with the Lord, and get saved by the power of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Catholic Charities is a major player in this trafficking. I saw an article today, or saw an interview today with a woman where the Pope Francis has put Cardinal McGarrick back in charge. Cardinal McGarrick helped facilitate the trafficking of 60,000 children out of Guatemala in 2013, 2014. I believe, people, we are in an age of awakening, meaning we are about to uncover and discover things that are going to shock us to the core as human beings and as Catholic, and as citizens. As a Catholic, my wife and I had that discussion just today. What are we going to do? Well, I'm going to do the same thing I'm going to do with me being a citizen of America. I'm not leaving America. I'm not going to leave my Catholic Church, but I'm going to root out or be a very strong voice against the people that run my faith. I despise my facilitators of my faith, and I love my faith. They're not my faith. They're facilitators of it. But we could go down, ma'am, at the same time. And I say Catholic because I am Catholic, and I take great ownership of it. But we can go down to Jewish family services, Lutheran family services. I can go on and on and on to give your audience some context of how much money we're talking about. I interviewed an individual that works for DHS that cut the checks for the NGOs, not someone that saw a pay stub or saw an email. No, the guy that actually wrote the checks and cut and hit the button for the electronic fund transfer. And I asked him, who are you in charge of? And they said, Jewish Family Services. And I said, okay, what's the largest check you cut? $600 million for a couple months. And it was renewable. That's one NGO. The religious NGOs have gobbled up the 30 pieces of silver and have betrayed who they lead, who they pray to. They're going to have to answer for that because they are all guilty. And everyone in the business knows that the NGOs are the mechanism the federal government used to transport the 30 million people into America. They're guilty.
Hey, JJ, thanks for Can you talk a little bit more about our local governments and how we can get involved with that and maybe how deep it goes into our local governments?
Yes, I think the answer to all of our problems is local government. What if someone in your audience ran for city council, and then another person, another group, and then you had the majority in the city council? Then your city council determines who the chief of police is. Your city council determines if you're a sanctuary city or not. Your sheriff now can go and arrest and make sure that there is no religious organizations bringing busloads of illegal aliens into your community. No illegal alien can work. You have ID checks. You have no illegal aliens are getting free housing. They're not going to suck up our welfare while Americans suffer. That is how you take control of this. Don't tell me it can't be done because the left already did it. If you take over, let's say you take over a small county in Florida, and then another county, another county, another county, all of a sudden your state is solid red. You have a DeSantis who's on board, is deputizing your sheriffs to get after illegal aliens. Now you have a state that has power. And now you cobble together a couple more states like you. Now you have a revolution going on. Now you can make change. But you cannot make change if you don't make that change at your lowest level. School boards. You're telling me somebody in that audience can't run for school board? And you guys can back them up and get them in there and make sure there's no transgender studies or all that other garbage going on? Yes, you can. How do I know that you can do that? Because people less than you, way morally bankrupt than you, the left has already done it. They've already done it. Now, we have to take back what is rightfully ours as a country.
Yeah, JJ, where do we pick up your books? That's the best place to get them.
Both my books are on Amazon.com. A crazy story at the beginning, I did my first book, Invaded, and I had a very large conservative publishing house. And they did like my tone of my book after 5 months. And I had to go back legally and take back all of my rights to my book. It was the first time I experienced censorship, and it's not fun. But it was amazing how God made that happen, because now I am very fully functioning self-publisher, and I love publishing my books and have complete ownership of my book. So I self-publish through Amazon. You just go on Amazon.com, type in Invaded or Treason, and it pops up. Or you can go to thisistreason.com, thisistreason.com, and I have my 2 documentaries there. But I will tell you, if you go watch the documentaries, especially the one titled Trafficked, and you see that the United States federal government has become the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history, what you see, you'll never be able to unsee it. And it will infuriate you that your federal government is trafficking children.
Do you have any of your documentaries on DVD?
I do. You just go, the same thing as thisistreason.com, you order it there and it gets shipped out that same day. Yes, sir. And then within a month, I'm having my whole website redone, but you can go to jjcarrell.com and it'll have all the links on there as well.
Thank you very much for what you're doing and exposing.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, just right off, Salvation Army, what is their platform in regards to this human trafficking? Are they involved in it as well?
You know, I have not gone into Salvation Army. I haven't. But that doesn't mean that they're not. I would have to go in and just look at the NGOs and the payments the federal government has made to them, and then just connect the dots to see. Now, just like Catholic Charities hides themselves that, like, I have an adopted son, and I used Catholic Charities years ago to help with my home placement and home visit, all that. So they hide themselves in, we're doing good. You're doing good, but 80-90% of all your funding, 80-90% of everything you do is illegal. You're not good. So the best way to do it is, if you work for that or you volunteer for that organization, whatever organization that is, ask for their open book. They have to show you their financials. I mean, it's just on the internet. Go there and see what federal grants they've received. And the federal grants will have notation to it. Immigrant, refugee, anything you see as refugee, that's the telltale sign that they are in bed with the federal government. You have to understand, you're looking at over $1 trillion in 4 years. Try to wrap your brain around that. That every NGO is at the trough gorging themselves. I just don't know, and if I do know, I would say it. If I don't, I'm going to just say that I don't know, ma'am. But I would look at their financials, and it would tell you immediately. You'd be able to recognize it.
This is like an American Holocaust.
It's like a what?
American Holocaust.
Well, it's betrayal that we've never experienced. We knew that the betrayal, like right now, we are looking at the tip of the iceberg, right? And we're shocked, right? We're shocked that $4.7 trillion out of the Treasury is missing. We're shocked. Brace yourself. Brace yourself, because we have no idea what's about to be shown and discovered to us. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I believe what we're going to witness with Epstein, with P. Diddy, with the money issue, with open borders, pedophilia, when we really get the full picture, I believe it's going to shake us to our foundation, to our core, intellectually, physically, spiritually, religiously. I think we're all going to ask ourselves a lot of hard questions.
Hi, JJ. My name's Maria, and I'm with a group here local called Pinellas Watchdogs, and I wanted to let you know that what we're doing, we meet here next Tuesday. It's the fourth Tuesday of every month in this same room, and we vet candidates, local candidates that want to run for school board and for the House and legislature, and we help those candidates get in those seats. And we've had some incredible candidates, but we could not get them into those seats. We need more help. And that's what we do. We strategize and we work, and if someone wants to be in any of those positions, please come and see us on Tuesday, because we are a force to get MAGA people into these seats. And we have a lot of people in Pinellas County that are not MAGA. They're in the Republican Party and they are not MAGA. And we can't get the issues, but we want supported as MAGA. So we are very well aware of the situation, grassroots here, what needs to be done, and we need a more shoulder-to-shoulder effort locally. We cannot rely on Donald Trump. He has enough to do. Everyone's like, President Trump's going to save the day. Well, we have to save the day. We have to really get busy. So I invite everyone here to please join us on Tuesday night in this same room and put their shoulder to the wheel and help us do that.
I think that's amazing. I know there are other groups that do that, ma'am, and I think it's incredible what you're doing, because that is the only way it's going to happen. And you make a great point, and it's something that people don't really say, and they need to say it out loud. I'm not a Republican. The Republican Party left me a long time ago. I'm a MAGA. I'm a Donald Trump, America first. That's it. I don't associate with Republicans. Who am I going to associate with? Did you see the number of major Republican senators in visiting Zelensky again and sending more money to him? That's not my party. They don't represent me. They don't that's why you're seeing, if Donald Trump, I state this clearly, if Donald Trump if he didn't run again, I think we would already be going to a third party. I really do. Americans have had it. So, but I think what you're doing, ma'am, is incredible. Thank you very much.
Hi, JJ. My name is Sherry, and I have a son.
Closer to the mic. Closer to the mic. You can't
I
hear
have
you.
a son and daughter-in-law who are CBP in Miami International Airport.
Okay.
And on their behalf, I'd like to thank you for not remaining silent and speaking up. My question is, can you speak to the morale of
Okay.
the Border Patrol when you were in it, going through the Biden years, and what they might be right now with Trump?
Okay. And I write this in my book, when Border Patrol agents talk about their careers now, we talk about it in terms of before and after Trump. So before Trump, the morale was horrible. The men and women in the Border Patrol are extremely patriotic, extremely hardworking, fearless individuals, but the people that run our country, run our organization, are traitors. And I witnessed it my whole career until Donald Trump came in office. Not his whole first 4 years, only his last 2 years, because you remember that the Republican Party held the House and the Senate, and they sabotaged every single thing Donald Trump wanted to do. Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell sabotaged everything. I watched it. I lived it. And when I talk about this, I get very animated because they refused to build the wall, and I watch my agents get their heads caved in by rocks, get shot at, get killed, commit suicide because they felt so demoralized. And then Trump started the last 2 years of his administration, and morale was off the chart. ICE was running rampant in our cities, arresting tens of thousands. We were shutting the border down. It was as if I was playing on the worst NFL team in the history with the worst ownership, coaches, and then I got traded to play with Tom Brady and the Patriots. That's what it felt like. And then, ma'am, that fast, Joe Biden comes in office, and the morale is so bad that we have an epidemic of suicide in the United States Border Patrol. However, the very first day that Donald Trump comes in office, my buddies are calling me and they're like, you can't believe what's happened. Let me give you an example of how morale's changed. And you're gonna laugh at this. So in my old station at Imperial Beach, it's a very large compound. So if you ever been on a military base or you've been going into a police officer, headquarters, or sheriff, there's really not a front door, right? There's just, everything's nondescript. No one knows where to go unless you work there. You go to Sallyport, you go in the back door, whatever, go in the locker room. No one knows. There's not a front door where it's very welcoming. So my agents there are telling me, JJ, the day Donald Trump gets in office, we get a knock on the door. And right next to our station is a giant helipad Navy installation. And he goes, the knock on the front door, like, who in the hell is knocking on our front door? Well, it was 500 Marines. 500 Marines showed up on the front door, and know what they said to the agent in charge? Sir, where do you want us? We've been sent by Donald Trump. They didn't even know they were coming. That's how fast things were working. And they sent them down the border, and it shut down overnight. That's Donald Trump for you.
That's what I've been experienced by talking with them, is that everybody seems to be very excited that he's back.
It is amazing, and what your son and daughter-in-law, or reverse, I can't remember, what they're doing. And I say this, ma'am, for 4 years, they had the worst job in the world. They hated their job. People were leaving. And then within an instant, if they could just hang on, now their job is the greatest law enforcement job in America. That's how much it's changed overnight. Now they have support. As a law enforcement officer, it is very, very uncomfortable and uneasy when you do not have support, when you have Black Lives Matter, defund the police, no deportation. It's frightening to be in that position because you're in a life and death situation where when you kill someone or you strike them and you hurt them and then they sue you, and instead of having support, they gang up on the side of the fence and attack you. And I've seen that happen in my career, and I've seen it happen across. So, ma'am, it's a very big change. Donald Trump is the greatest alpha male that I have ever seen in my life. It is unbelievable to witness. It truly is.
Can you also speak a little more to the fact of the birthright citizenship? Because that's one of the things that really frustrated my daughter.
Okay, well, birthright citizenship is a lie. It's a fallacy. Let me tell you where it began. Everyone thinks, because we've been propagandized and lied to, birthright citizenship, everyone believes it started back in the 1800s or the 1700s when we started our country in the Mayflower. No. It started in the 1980s where a Supreme Court Justice Brennan did a dicta. And a dicta in a Supreme Court is a side, meaning he wrote something in his description that had nothing to do with the case, and his was about birthright citizenship, and everyone went, yep, see, all you have to do is be born here. Well, I know that's not true because I did this for a living. I had to go through the Border Patrol Academy. So let me tell you what the 14th Amendment states. The 14th Amendment was created to ensure black slaves could vote and have citizenship, and their descendants, meaning their children, the slave children, when they can become citizens and vote. Do you know who was excluded from the 14th Amendment? Native Americans. And what the 14th Amendment states is this. It's a two-pronged system. You must be born on American soil and, not maybe, not I wonder, no, and under the jurisdiction thereof of the country. So let me give you an example. I'm a German family, and in Europe, they schedule out their vacation for years in advance. My wife gets pregnant. 7 months pregnant, we're going on holiday. No matter what, we already spent our money. We fly into the Grand Canyon. We're stomping around the Grand Canyon all day, and it causes my wife's water to break, and my wife prematurely has her child, our child, on the Grand Canyon. Great story, great pictures, but that child was born on American soil, but it was born under the jurisdiction of Germany. So that child is a German citizen. No one disputes that. So if we're going to say that's the litmus test, and that our founding fathers determined, or the people that were after the founding fathers said we need to have freed slaves be citizens and be able to vote, we're going to exclude Native Americans. But are you telling me when they decided on the 14th Amendment, they were thinking of Guatemalans, Sudanese, Ecuadorians that were going to come over to America, Chinese, and squat and have a baby on the dirty, dusty road, border road, and we're going to call that a U.S. citizen? Do you see the stupidity of it? But we have been propagandized for what, 40, 50 years that birthright citizenship is a thing? No, it's not. And ma'am, it has never been brought to the front of the Supreme Court. And I believe it's damn well time that be brought to the Supreme Court. Why would we cheapen our citizenship to mean nothing? It's absurd. But it has to go to the Supreme Court, and they will make that decision. And there is only one decision when you look at the law. And nobody even knows what the 14th Amendment is. They have no idea how to argue this. It's a two-pronged system, period. Yes, sir.
I like you are Roman Catholic politically, or theologically, but politically, I'm a Jerry Falwell Baptist. I'm also a naturalized citizen, and you have no idea what, 65 years ago, what it took to get into this country. And I had to have a certain amount of money. I was lucky I had an American engineering education and a conservative reviewer at the Immigration and Naturalization Service. But I think you're aware of this, but do you realize that Chuck Schumer has discovered that accident in Toronto was Trump's fault?
Oh, I'm sure it was Trump's fault, right? Yeah. Yeah. The plane that flipped over on, yeah, it's always.
Man's a genius.
Well, I tell you this, as a naturalized citizen, I think that's powerful, because in order to come to America, it needs to be on merit base. Do we need more engineers? Do we need more nurses, doctors? What is it that we need? That's why we bring them in. We don't bring people into America just because you want family reunification. No, that's absurd. And we need to get back to merit base.
Hi, it's me again. I got one more thing to say. This will be a little bit quick. Elon Musk, people, is like a bloodhound and a bulldog when it comes to finding out all of this fraud and waste and everything else. He is going after IRS and Fort Knox next. So he's got his eyes on those two agencies, and no telling how many more he's going to get after. But he is a bulldog on this thing. He's got the nose for it. And I got one little piece of news. Earlier this afternoon, President Trump signed an executive order to free up IVF. You know what IVF is? And for all these young mothers that can't conceive babies on their own, they will be able to get IVF in hopefully much cheaper ways than previously they've been able to get. So IVF is available thanks to his executive order.
You got one more guy coming up here.
Question on logistics.
Yes, sir.
How does this work with 50 million immigrants
You gotta point the microphone at your mouth.
all around the whole country, and you want to deport them back where they go? How's the logistics
Huh?
of that work? It'd be like 35,000 every day for 4 years to catch up to that big of a figure.
How do you do it? Is that the question? How do you do
How
it?
do they physically do this?
Okay. Well, the way you do it is you make it, I don't have to deport 50 million people. There is a thing called self-deportation, and it works. I don't allow you to work in my country. I don't allow you any kind of medical help unless it's emergency, and that's very strict. I don't allow you to get welfare. I don't allow you to get anything. I make it impossible for you to stay here, and then you will leave. Will there be people that will dig in the trenches, the rapists, the murderers, the criminal aliens, the terrorists, the PLA soldiers? Yes, but we'll systematically find you. But you just had today, Kristi Noem came out just today and said, this is a PSA warning, and we're going to do more PSAs, that if you are caught in America, you are never allowed back into America legally ever again. And if you are here and committing crimes, we will hunt you down. Nobody wants to be prey. No one wants to be hunted down. They're going to leave on their own. And there is a carrot and there's a stick. And the stick is, I'm going to throw you in jail. And the carrot is, you may go and stand in line to come back. But if you don't, and we find you, we're going to tag you in our system, and you are banned for 20 years. That's a powerful statement. So I understand when you talk about logistics, and Donald Trump is still working out the logistics to move thousands of people a day out of our country. However, all you have to be is consistent, bold, and forceful, and the vast majority will leave on their own. They will just leave on their own. History has already proven this to be a fact.
I always thought of the idea that if now that the United States is making the stand that we want to get rid of illegal aliens, I always thought that if somebody hired an illegal alien, those people should be fined and be responsible for sending these people back to their own countries. So this way we
Well,
can take some of the burden off of our government sending them back.
Well, this is a great, I'm glad you brought that up, because I want everyone to know there are no new laws that need to be passed. All these are on the books. We used to do employer sanctions, and it worked. Do you know who shut down the employer sanctions the last time in the 90s? Republican Party. Republican Party shut down because the Chamber of Commerce put pressure on the Republican Party, and they said, okay. Do you know who was the happiest group of people that we would see when we did employer sanction? All the legal residents. They loved us because their wage increased. They weren't taken advantage of. So when you begin to talk about all of the abuses from illegal aliens, understand that if you really care about immigrants and you care about our rule of law, then you have to acknowledge that the legal immigrant population is being destroyed by the illegal alien community. And yes, employer, that's part of my to use the left's term, comprehensive. You must shut down all of these corporations. And before anybody, ma'am, says, well, our construction, our service industry will crash, I say to them, first, you're extremely ignorant. Do you know the largest population of illegal aliens in the largest sector of illegal aliens? That is in the construction sector. Do you know how many people, percentage-wise, make up the population of construction workers that are illegal aliens? 13%. So you're telling me I'm building a building and I have 100 workers and only 87 show up because the other 13 were arrested and deported? My construction site shuts down? No, it keeps going, and then I go hire 13 more people for the proper wage. Do you know how many the service industry has illegal aliens? 7%. You're telling me, and this is a bigger, broader question, the greatest country, the greatest economy in the history of mankind, are you telling me that my economy is dependent on illiterate third world people? That's what you're trying to convince me? That I need them to keep my economic engine running? That's a lie, it's a fallacy. And they propagandize to believe that construction is 75%, 90% of the people in service industry are illegal aliens. It's all a lie. All of it's a lie.
JJ, this will be the last question.
Yes, sir.
I think so. I have a belief that we're on the way there because we have the right president there to cause the laws to be enforced. Like you just said, the Congress has already developed the laws that have been in place that we just haven't paid attention to.
Correct.
And since we really can't, unless all the Republicans stay together, we really can't fix it legislatively. We already have the laws in effect. We've already got the people under control by sealing the border.
Mhm.
And the part about self-deportation, when they can't find work and they're not getting public benefits, they're gonna wanna leave, because that's
Yes.
why they're here. So, and with the birthright citizenship, that seems to be the only thing that's a little bit out of our control right now. And it just so seems to be that the only people in the way of any of this stuff, most of it now, are Congress. And those politicians are so corrupt. Otherwise, we couldn't have some of those politicians. Example, Hank Johnson, who believes that the island of Guam could tip over if we put
Yep.
too many Marines there. And that Maxine Waters, or not Maxine Waters, it was, I think it was Sheila Jackson Lee, was at the NASA when they were landing on the probe on Mars, and she asked if they would see the American flag that they planted there years ago. So when those kind of people in Congress and unable to be removed, the legislative seems like the hardest way to go, but we have most everything except for that, the birthright citizenship issue.
Yep. And the birthright citizenship, Trump is going to do the right thing. He's going to move it, force it into the Supreme Court. There will be some left-wing judge already challenged it, and Donald Trump knew that was going to happen. And then he'll have Pam Bondi bring it in front of the Supreme Court. And then once America realizes that they have been lied to about birthright citizenship, as you've been lied to about the Iraq war, the Middle East wars, everything under the sun, you're going to realize, look, the American government has lied to us all. Some of you people, I'm looking at you in the audience, I'm 55. I think some of you are a little older than me, not much. But you know that if you have any intellectual curiosity or any intellectual honesty, you must admit that everything you have been taught your whole life is not true. It's either a half-truth or a partial truth or a flat-out lie. I question everything. Everything. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just a guy that realizes that I've been lied to. And once you've lied to me 5, 7, 10, 100 times, I have the moral right to say, I don't believe you for the 101st time. And I think that's where we are as Americans right now, unfortunately.
Well, thank you, JJ. What does
Thank
everybody
you.
think?
Thank you much for having me. Have a great night. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
New this morning, the Q persona at the center of the QAnon conspiracy is back. This is after an 18-month absence.
After more than 18 months of silence, the Q account is back.
In the history of 60 Minutes, I'm not sure we've ever reported a story that for the most part is pure fantasy. But that's how to best sum up QAnon, an ever-shifting mega conspiracy theory that's bizarre and nonsensical.
Been gone for 18 months, back all of a sudden on Friday after the Supreme Court issued its Roe versus Wade decision.
Yeah, look, this is as dumb as it is dangerous. But QAnon, for folks who haven't been paying attention, is that at the center of this is this character called Q, who the believers believe without any evidence that that person is a government insider and has been posting these kind of predictions, and a whole community, a cult has built up around it.
What's your name, sir? My name is Go Fuck Yourself.
It's really too stupid to even show the posts of this Q person.
A blog, a message board in 2017 and 2018, and how fast they have mainstreamed this lie that pedophiles are everywhere you look, in the Democratic Party, in Hollywood, in your schools, in media, like that they're literally just everywhere.
It's important to highlight how totally nutburger the collective conspiracies pushed by this account were.
Millions of people appear to be caught up in the internet-based cult.
On Friday night, after 18 months, hadn't posted since December 2020 after Trump lost the election, which of course QAnon believers don't believe that, began posting uncharacteristically ambiguous postings, stuff like "we're back," but obviously that put everything into a whole frenzy.
Q, whose completely absurd posts, which would be laughably cryptic and are actually never accurate, are at the heart of the QAnon conspiracy movement.
The world ruled by a cabal of Satan-worshipping elites who prey on children and harvest their blood. With Donald Trump our only saviour, ready to defeat the forces of darkness. So is the idea that the rest of us are ignorant if we don't understand it?
Yes, the rest of us are asleep, but the Q people want to wake us up.
Do you at the time believe that high-level Democrats and celebrities were worshiping Satan, drinking the blood of children?
Q specifically mentioned you, and he mentioned you very early on. He mentioned you by name.
At one point heading into the 2020 election, as much as 20% of the American people said they believed in it.
The Q stuff would be funny if it didn't actually have real-world consequences.
And it was a way of gamifying conspiracy theories, and look how many people were sucked into it, particularly during COVID.
We've had the white van freak out where someone takes a picture of a white van and says, "Oh my God, my children."
Some sort of crazy conspiracy theory. Yeah.
We had the satanic panic. We had...
What does it mean that now that the Q account is back up and running?
Yeah, I mean, Anderson, I think like among the kind of polite company here in Washington, D.C. and here in New York City, the conventional wisdom might be to say we should ignore it. It's stupid. It is dumb. It is objectively dumb.
But let's reinforce that this is a completely baseless nutburger conspiracy that still managed to wag the dog of our politics for a point.
There is obviously the crazy QAnon beliefs where it comes to cabals and everything else.
Drinking blood of children, blah,
yes,
blah, blah.
But it's part of just kind of a tapestry, a range of conspiratorial beliefs.
And they go down all these rabbit holes and invent all this stuff, and it becomes this, it's like just this ball rolling that more and more people get in on it and believe that they're part of some sort of investigation that amounts to nothing and is all based on just complete BS.
I think you're right. I think that expansion, and just expanding it to everyone is a pedophile that disagrees with you, I want to believe that there's some price to pay for that.
It's a cave. It's a cave of conspiracies.
What are the QAnon people saying? Like,
trust the plan.
A community is built up around this, and it's dangerous.
Some of the worst people on the internet.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news
has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
We were supposed to, as mentioned, be watching you on a debate stage right now. We're not doing that, so let's clear up a few things from the last one. You were asked point blank to denounce white supremacy. In the moment, you didn't. You asked some follow-up questions. Who specifically? A couple of days later, on a different show, you denounced white supremacy.
No,
my question to you is,
you've done this to me and everybody.
Why does it seem like
I denounce white supremacy? Okay,
you did 2 days later.
I've denounced white supremacy for years, but you always do it. You always start off with a question. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa. I watched him on the same basic show with Lester Holt, and he was asking questions like Biden was a child.
So this is a little bit of a dodge.
Are you listening? I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
What's your next question?
Do you feel, it feels sometimes you're hesitant to do so, like you wait a beat.
Here we go again. Every time, in fact, my people came, I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats who don't know what they're doing.
While we're denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and that disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is a satanic cult run by the deep
state.
state.
The subject. I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by Republicans.
Republican Senator Ben Sasse said, quote, QAnon is nuts, and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories.
He may be
Why not
right.
just say it's
Can I be
crazy
honest?
and not true.
He may be right. I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me
tell
ask you
all
another
about
thing.
it. Let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy. I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more in this vein.
Let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree
But
with it
there's not
very
a
strongly.
satanic pedophile
I have
cult
no
being run
idea.
by.
I know
You
nothing
don't know
about
that? Okay.
No, I don't know
you
that.
Just
and
this
neither
week.
do you know that.
Okay, just this week
Why,
you
why aren't
retweeted.
you asking me about Antifa? Why aren't you asking me
'Cause you
about the
just-
radical left?
because you're
Why aren't
volunteering
you
it.
asking Joe Biden questions about why doesn't he condemn Antifa? Why does he say it doesn't exist?
Because you're here
Antifa,
before me.
no, excuse, that's so cute. Antifa exists. They're vicious, they're violent, they kill people, and they're burning down our cities. And they happen to be radical left.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.